Hello, guys. I know it's late. It's time for another one of my late broadcasts here. Let me know when you start coming in. I hope everyone's doing okay tonight. Hello. I guess everybody is over at Dolly's. If nobody comes in the next few minutes, I will just end the stream and try again later. Hey, I see a couple coming on in here. How are y'all doing tonight? Y'all doing okay? Hey, Aussie lady, how are you? Hey, Tennessee Rose, how are you? Hey, Dakota Ray, I hope y'all are doing okay tonight. Hey, three of us, that makes a gathering, right? Counting myself makes four. That's plenty for me. We'll give it just a minute for everybody else or for a couple more to get in here. This might be a very interesting stream because, after all, this is Resurrection Weekend, right? There is full moon festivals going on. I'm doing good. Oh, Tennessee Rose, I am so sorry about that aquarium leak. Yeah, I've had to let my old dog out too. And I apologize that it's so late with this. First of all, I had a back procedure done early this morning, and then I have been working on some of this research that kind of attaches to the my video of why Bays Mountain is so important to Tim Mullins. And I hate that I missed Cher's stream. I told her I would be there, but um, gosh, today's just been hectic trying to get this research done. But it has been on my mind all week about these full moons and this being resurrection weekend and the push for Candace to make her defense and it is a spring equinox. And these people seem to function all around these things. I don't know what part of the world that y'all are in, but the full moon you see outside is actually a pink moon. The Gianti Festival Moon, one moon, many names. Here in the United States, we refer to it simply as the pink moon or the flowering moon. Sprouting grass, fish moon, but it can be best observed tomorrow evening, and it appears on the opposite side of the sun. This will be Sunday morning, India Standard Time Zone, eastward across the rest of Asia, Australia, Pacific Ocean to the international dateline. The moon will appear full for about 3 days, centered on this time from early Friday morning through early Monday morning, making this a full moon weekend across the world. Oh yeah, and this is one that is just felt everywhere. Pink moon, named after the herb moss pink, also known as creeping phlox, moss phlox, or mountain phlox, a plant native to the eastern United States that is one of the earliest widespread flowers of the spring. Other names for this moon include sprouting grass moon, the egg moon, and among coastal tribes, the fish moon, as this was when the shad swam upstream to spawn. This is also the Passover moon. Passover begins at sundown on Friday, April the 15th, and ends at nightfall, Saturday, April the 23rd, 2022. The Siddur feasts are on the 2 evenings of Passover. In the Christian calendars, this is the Paschal moon, from which the date of Easter is calculated. Paschal is the Latinized version of Pesach, generally the Christian holiday of Easter, which is usually celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. However, there are differences between the times of these astronomical events and the calendars used by the Eastern and Western churches. This is one of the years where the differences do matter, Western Christianity will be celebrating Easter on Sunday, April the 17th, 2022, the Sunday after the first full moon of spring. Eastern Christianity will celebrate Eastern Orthodox Easter a week later on Sunday, April the 24th. This very rarely happens that there's a split in that for Christianity. For Hindus, this full moon corresponds with Hanuman or Jayanti, the celebration of the birth of the Lord Hanuman, which celebrated in most areas on the full moon day of the Hindu lunar month of Chantra. For Buddhists, especially in Sri Lanka, this full moon is Bak Poya, commemorating when the Buddha visited Sri Lanka and settled a dispute between chiefs avoiding a war. The moons and the calendars. In many traditional lunisolar calendars, the months change with the new moon, and full moons fall in the middle of the lunar months. This full moon is in the middle of the third month of the Chinese calendar. In the Islamic calendar, the months start with the first sighting of the waxing crescent moon shortly after the new moon. The full moon is near the middle of the holy month of Ramadan. Ramadan is honored as the month in which the Quran was revealed. Observing this annual month of charitable acts, prayer, and fasting from dawn to sunset is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. As usual, the wearing of suitable celebratory celestial attire is encouraged in honor of the full moon. So enjoy the spring flowers, consider acts of charity, leave an extra seat at the table, and try to avoid starting any wars. I got this information from NASA Solar System Exploration. This full moon is lined with a lot of planets, and it's especially lined with the planet Libra. Now, basically what this is saying is you've got a lot of different churches and a lot of different Christianities celebrating a lot of different things under this full moon. When you get a lot of different religions pulling in different directions, things start rubbing, right? Because everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to be correct. Everybody wants to prove their religion right. No, it's a pink moon, Tennessee Rose, not a blood moon. There's a difference. All religions want to be correct. And this is one of those full moons to where the way that the lunar calendars fall, and keep this in mind what I'm saying, lunar as in moon. Keep the word lunar in mind as we move into Osiris here in just a minute. Do y'all remember in the beginning of this thing when summer first disappeared and I done my video on a brief mythology and I explained how things were, how the Bible coincided with some of the pagan beliefs. Okay. Give me just a minute to. I'm trying to find my notes in my notebooks. Here, give me just a minute. Okay. We're going to jump over to Orion, 7th day. I hate when you research something and you bookmark it and then you can't find it. Do y'all ever do that? Okay. Adventist pioneer Joseph Bates was fascinated by his observation of what appeared to him to be a gap in the constellation of Orion. And the title of this is Ellen White and the Orion Stargate. He first observed the phenomena while sailing on a ship in the southern hemisphere in the 1820s. He later wrote about it in his tract, The Opening Heavens, which he published in the late 1845. In his autobiography, he describes the Orion Gap, and what he's referring to is Orion's belt. But the most remarkable of all the cloudy stars, he says, is that in the middle of Orion's sword, where 7 stars, 3 of which are very close together, seem to shine through a cloud. It looked like a gap in the sky, through which one may see as if it were a part of a much brighter region. Although most of these spaces are but a few minutes of a degree in breadth, yet since they are among the fixed stars, they must be spaces larger than what is occupied by our solar system, and in which there seems to be a perpetual, uninterrupted day among numberless worlds which no human art can ever discover. This gap or place in the sky, undoubtedly the same that is spoken of in the scriptures, See John 1:51. Although Bates connected the gap in Orion with the scriptures, he was not the first Christian to theorize that nebulae were gateways into the heavens. The Reverend William Durham in 1657 through 1735, an astronomer and author of a book, Astrotheology, described nebulae as openings in the firmament through which the fiery Empyrean is seen. The Empyrean is defined as the highest reaches of heaven, believed by the ancients to be a realm of pure fire or light, the abode of God and the angels, paradise. Y'all with me so far? Did you understand what I just read? The highest reaches of heavens, believed by the ancients to be a realm of pure fire or light, the abode, the home of God and the angels, paradise. After the Whites linked up with Joseph Bates in the mid-1840s, Mrs. Ellen White acquired a sudden interest in astronomy. During this time, she had her infamous solar system vision. Adventist historian J. N. Loughborough describes how during that vision, Mrs. White began a description of the opening heavens with its glory, calling it an opening into a region more enlightened. Elder Bates said that her description far surpassed any accounts of the opening heavens he had ever read from any author. Adventist historian A. W. Spalding shares more details of the vision. But after seeing the planets, she seemed to pass over a great distance in the heavens until she came to a place that is called the gap in the sky. When she began to describe this, Elder Bates rose to his feet in great excitement. She has given a more wonderful description, he said, than any astronomer ever dreamed of. And still she spoke of its great beauty, with the four great stars far apart as its gates, and the glory, with the wonderful glory shining through. The heavens beyond, she said, made a region more enlightened. This indeed is the gateway from our part of the universe into the central heaven where God dwells. Now, what she is saying is the nebula of Orion's belt is where the part of heaven is where God dwells. Now, where I'm going with this is, hold on. A couple of years later, on December 16, 1848, Mrs. White took the Orion theory one step further. She had another vision in which she saw the functioning of the Orion stargate. Dark, heavy clouds came up and clashed against each other. The atmosphere parted and rolled back. Then we could look up through the opening space in Orion, whence came the voice of God. The holy city will come down through that open space. Now you can continue on down to where the church even says pagan connection question mark. And here's where the Egyptian part comes in. Orion figured prominently in the ancient pagan religion, such as that of Egyptians. New Age Arthur Barry Martin describes the importance of Orion. If it is through the gateway in Orion that we receive the higher light, we will understand why the ancient Egyptian texts refer to Amsk, and why the Great Pyramid was aligned with Mintaka Delta, Al-Nil in Al-Nilam, Epsilon, and Zeta, and Tac Orion, which is Orionis. I have a hard time with these names. These are the central threshold controls for the region of positive programming used by the Elohim Lords of Light to connect the many galaxies to our Father Universe. Within our galactic quadrant, these thresholds control are necessary in coordinating celestial navigation, between universes. Through the energies of Orion, the central threshold control, the higher beings of light moved across the waters of the deep. Notice the following from the above quote. There is a gateway in Orion. Humans receive higher light through that gateway. Number 3, Orion is a navigational point for the higher beings to connect with Earth. The following excerpt shows the importance of Orion to the ancient Egyptians. In the Orion mystery, we presented graphic as well as written evidence showing how important the Egyptians considered the constellation of Orion to be. There was a published illustration based on a drawing from the ceiling of the tomb of Senmut, companion and visionary to Queen Hatshepsut. In the picture, Orion is shown standing in a small boat with 3 prominent stars, representing Orion's belt over his head. This figure carries in his left hand a staff, while in his right he holds an ankh, the Egyptian hieroglyph, usually translated as life. Behind him, following in her boat, is a goddess, identifiable as representing the star Sothis or Sirius. Another diagram showed part of the ceiling painted from the mausoleum of Seti, one of the greatest of the New Kingdom pharaohs and father of Ramses II. In this drawing, Orion is again shown in his boat with the staff in one hand and the ankh in the other, above which is a 5-pointed star. A third illustration of Orion comes from the Cairo Museum. Custodian of the Peridion that once capped the pyramid in Dashur. Being from the Middle Kingdom, this pyramid is older than the ceiling of the tombs of Senmut and Seti, but it carries a very similar representation of Orion. Again, he is shown as a walking man holding a staff in one hand, but this time he is cupping a star with the other. The positioning of a star above the outstretched hand of Orion has another important meaning that would not have been lost on the Egyptians. The hieroglyph of a 5-pointed star is transliterated as literally just meaning star. however, has a secondary meaning, which is door. It is used in this way in Wallace Budge's monumental edition of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where he translates a particular sentence as, "I opened the door in heaven." The hieroglyphs for door, which he transliterates as a five-pointed star with an Egyptian vulture symbol next to it. Thus, the star held out in the hand of the Sehu figure on the Ben stone conveys, in shorthand, the exact meaning of stargate. We can see from this that the placing of a star in the hand of Orion was entirely appropriate. It indicated that the point where the Milky Way intersected with the ecliptic above the hand of Orion was the location of one of the gates of heaven. So you decide. You decide. The Seventh-day Adventist believes that you heard what I just said. I've got to get a drink. My mouth is dry. We're nowhere near finished. Nowhere near. All we've heard for 10 months is resurrection. We'll see her in the resurrection. We'll see her in the resurrection. Right? Well, maybe we will. And maybe it will be sooner than we think. Because these people are absolutely fucking insane. Hello, Cheshire Cat. Excuse me. So, Ellen G. White has taught. So basically, I guess now we know why all the trips to Egypt, where we see David Dotson in Egypt, and they're worshiping these ancient deities, these ancient gods, right? And one of these gods that they worship is the god Osiris, who is tied right to Orion, and I'll explain how to. Osiris is the god of fertility, agriculture. He's the god of afterlife, the god of the dead, and the god of resurrection. the god of life, and the god of ancient Egyptian religion. He was classically depicted as a green-skinned deity with a pharaoh's beard, partially mummy-wrapped at the legs, wearing a very distinct crown and holding a symbolic crook and flail. He was one of the first to be associated with the mummy wrap. When his brother Seth cut him up into little pieces after killing him, Isis, his wife, found all the pieces and wrapped his body up, enabling him to return to life. Osiris was at the time considered the eldest son of the earth god and the sky goddess, as well as being brother and husband of Isis, with Horus being considered his posthumous begotten son. In the Old Kingdom, the pharaoh was considered a son of the sun god Ra, who after his death ascended to join Ra in the sky. With the spread of the Osiris cult, however, there was a change in beliefs. Hold on, I'm not done yet. Now, did you catch the part where his begotten son and he was killed by Seth? Hang on, I've got so many things bookmarked here. I'm afraid I'm jumping out of order, but I think you guys are getting the. And he was once believed to have been alive. He was a fifth dynasty ruler, but he was once believed to be a shepherd in life. Okay. You know, every once in a while, the Seventh Day Adventists put out things like this: Orion slash Osiris. This is the things that they put out to the media. Doesn't make it true, but it's out there. There was that car-sized fireball seen over Northern California on Wednesday night. The media was quick to tell us that it was a loose or early meteor from the Orion meteor shower that was actually not happening until this weekend. Gerald McKeegan, an astronomer in the Chabal Center, said he saw it as he was driving. I looked up in the sky, and there was a streaking ball of fire going over the sky. The powers of heaven are being shaken down on October the 7th as we announce the dragon, Satan, being cast down at the end of the Feast of Tabernacles, October 7th through the 8th. The Draconid meteor shower, the prophetic message, was actually written October the 3rd, 2012, and posted on October the 7th, 2012. Here's an excerpt in the word of the Lord, and it just keeps going on and on about the myths of Orion. And let me see here if I can show y'all how they've made Orion kind of. Well, hold on, I'll be jumping ahead. With precision and an eye to the sky, the great builders of the pyramids replicated Orion's belt on the sands of Egypt. We know from old religious writings that the ancient Egyptians believed that the gods descended from the belt of Orion. So, if the pagan gods descended from the belt of Orion, and the Seventh day Adventists believe that God, the Christian God, lives in Orion's belt, what are they saying? That the ancient gods and the Christian God are one of the same? Evidently, that is what they're saying. Furthermore, that Cyrus, the brightest star in the sky, and these gods took the form of human beings. As a result, Orion became associated with the god Osiris. Cyrus associated with the goddess Isis. Together, they created all of human civilization. Their size and placement also take into account both the visible brightness and location of the stars within Orion's belt. Consequently, the two larger pyramids line up perfectly in comparison to the small offset pyramid of Meteor. And then it goes into, the pyramids, the axial precision and time. And we know that the Egyptians were, pretty accurate with I'm not going to get into the debating on the alignment of the pyramids and the Egyptians and all that, because, we, through science, have found out that they were pretty damn accurate on all that stuff. My only argument here is we have a Christian network, or a supposed Christian network, saying that the ancient gods and the Christian God reside in the same place in Orion's belt. They have some sort of worship to the same resurrection God. And something is wrong with this picture here. Hey, her name was Amber. I'm just looking down. I just noticed that you were in here. And I don't know who is behind this cold case Christianity article here, but it says over the past 2 weeks, I've examined similarities between Jesus, Mithras, and Horus. Early mythological characters are sometimes offered by skeptics in an attempt to argue Jesus is nothing more than a recreation and retelling of the ancients' rising and dying mythologies embraced by a number of primitive cultures. Movies like The God Who Wasn't There have capitalized on this strategy, highlighting every possible similarity while ignoring the critical differences. Osiris is mentioned in both of these movies as yet another iteration of the rising and dying Savior preceding the appearance of Jesus. Skeptics claim Osiris and Jesus were identical in a number of important ways. According to these doubters, Osiris was called Lord of Lords, King of Kings, God of Gods, Resurrection and the Life, Good Shepherd, Eternity and Everlasting, and the God who made men and women to be born again. Osiris' birth was allegedly announced by three wise men, the three stars Mintaka, Analam, Alnitak, and the belt of Orion. Osiris had a star in the east, Sirius, that signified his birth, and his followers enjoyed a Eucharist ceremony of sorts, in which his flesh was eaten in a form of commune cakes of wheat. Skeptics also claim Osiris taught much of the same material as Jesus. They claim many teachings are identical, the same, word for word. Osiris was allegedly killed and resurrected, providing hope every believer might also be resurrected into eternal life. These similarities, when offered in isolation, seem dramatic, but are true, and if so, what bearing does this have on historically of Jesus? In order to respond to claims such as these, careful investigators must expose any false claims, uncover the faulty cherry-picking strategy employed in such comparison, reveal the common cultural expectations of any people or group thinking about the existence and nature of God, unearth the unlikely approach allegedly adopted by early Christians, and establish the reliability of historical records for the person of Jesus. When it comes to Osiris, the first step in this process involves a close examination of the alleged similarities to see if they are true in the first place. As is the case with comparison with Mithras and Horus, false similarities are often offered by folks who simply haven't done their homework. For another examination of Osiris and many other alleged Christian precursors, please visit David Anderson's excellent website. Claim: Osiris was called Lord of Lords, King of Kings, God of Gods, Resurrection and Life, Good Shepherd, Eternity and Everlastingness, and the God who made men and women to be born again. Truth: these names for Jesus were not used by Osiris, who was called Lord of all, the good being, Lord of the underworld, Lord, King of eternity, ruler of the dead, Lord of the West, Great One, he who takes the seat, the begetter, the ram, great word, chief of the spirits, ruler of the everlasting, living God, God above the gods. These rather general names were not uncommon for many other deities as well. The claim Osiris's birth was announced by three wise men, the three stars, Mintaka, Analam, and Alnitak in the belt of Orion, and Osiris had a star in the east, Sirius, that signified his birth. The truth? It is true that some scholars connect Osiris with Orion, but they don't stretch the imagination to call the three stars of the belt wise men, and there is no mention of an eastern star in the Osiris mythology. Claim Osiris had a Eucharist ceremony of sorts, in which his flesh was eaten in the form of communion cakes of wheat. What was the truth? There is no evidence for this in the research of the scholars. Claim Osiris taught much of the same materials as Jesus. Many teachings are identically the same, word for word. The truth of it, there is absolutely no evidence of any of this, and the wisdom of Osiris is still available for review. Claim Osiris was killed and later resurrected, providing hope every believer might also be resurrected into eternal life. What was the truth? Osiris was murdered, and his body was then dismembered and scattered. Later, his body pieces were recovered and rejoined, and he was rejuvenated. Osiris then journeyed to the underworld, where he became the Lord of the dead. He did not resurrect with a glorified body and walk with men on earth as Jesus did. He was not alive again as Jesus, but was instead a dead God who never returned among the living. Let me read that to the ones in the back who can't. Truth. Osiris was murdered, and his body was then dismembered and scattered. Later, his body pieces were recovered and rejoined, and he was rejuvenated. Osiris then journeyed to the underworld, where he became Lord of the dead, not men of men, Lord of this. He did not resurrect. He did not resurrect with a glorified body and walk with men on earth as Jesus did. He was not alive again as was Jesus, but he was instead a dead God who never returned among the living. He cannot be a resurrection God if he was never resurrected. Fact. So these people who are worshiping him as a deity, a resurrection God, if he was never resurrected, then he's a false God. You're worshiping a false God. You're worshiping a false deity. Ellen White is teaching false doctrine. Tim Mullen, David Ryder, who else is teaching this, is teaching false doctrine. There will be many, many festivals going on this weekend in many various religions, even amongst the pagans and the heathens and the ones who practice a satru that is doing nothing more than worshiping Mother Nature, bringing in the spring equinox. But there will be some religions doing some shady things. And this is also the 10-month anniversary of summerwells missing. Let's don't forget that. Guess what's playing at the movie plex on Bays Mountain at the planetarium? Take a wild guess what they're showing at the planetarium on Bays Mountain. I'll give y'all 3 guesses to guess what's playing on Bays Mountain at the planetarium. Come on, I know I've got people in the chat. Take a wild guess. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. Just what, nobody wants to hear the truth? No, Dakota, but you're close. Egypt and Orion's belt. Is that a coincidence? Kind of makes you wonder if the Seventh Day Adventist doesn't sponsor the planetarium. Or if the videographer, big man videographer that controls the planetarium and the movieplex at Bays Mountain has some connection. Kind of strange, huh? And at VeniceToday.org, Orion Rising is one article. At VeniceDefenseLeague.com, Ellen White and Orion Nebula. Orion's Belt and other misinformation. X at Venice. Truthseeker.com. The significance of Orion / spirit realm. AboveTopSecret.com forum. Is Orion heaven? Question mark. Page 1. StepsToLife.org. Oh, fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists. Sites.google.com. The SDA cult. It lies on the celestial equator and contains many bright stars, including regal Betelgeuse and a line of 3 that forms Orion's belt. Today, Seventh-day Adventists are still preaching the false prophetess Ellen G. White and her god Nimrod, who resides in the holy city of Orion. So according to Ellen G. White, what? I mean, I'm just taking a guess here. Jesus Christ is coming back through Orion's belt, and Orion is the star system of the reptilians? Is that what I'm understanding? Yes, that's what I'm understanding. Why not pick the Andromeda galaxy, or why Orion's belt? Orion, the Elohim Stargate. Orion, the threshold gate for star creation. The belt area is the inner heaven, a locus of death and rebirth of stars and species, and the doorway to the Father's throne. Godlikeproductions.com. Orion was a skilled hunter with his club, shield, and sword. He was classified as a giant. He was also a mortal living on Earth. Orion was a strong, handsome, and he was troublesome. Orion also had a big ego. He boasted that he could beat any animal on Earth. Many people also see Orion's constellation of a three-star belt in the sky. Now, what does the Bible tell us about the half humans, half giants? And we've heard Don speak about these people. These I can't think of the word. What are they? They believe the giants were fallen angels, and they come down. They slept with the humans. Um, y'all know what I'm talking about. So I asked the Wells Media Manager, is it possible that we can see a resurrection under the pink moon, under the festival moon this weekend, Mr. Media Manager? On the 10-month anniversary of missing Summer Moon Utah Wells. Can you plead to your god Osiris, to your resurrection deity, for a return of Summer Moon, Utah wells. I mean, after all, they have been working on this mother's defense for the big bring back day, right? This is why I hate religion. This has been Valkyrie's Corner. Hope y'all have a great night.